Hey everyone, it's Luca, and today I'm going to be doing the API workshop. I'm going to explain a little bit about how to use APIs, what APIs are, and how they might be useful to your project. So quickly in short, an API is a application programming interface, except that's probably not going to mean a whole lot to some people. So I'm going to give you an analogy as to how to think of an API. So an API is how we get data from another computer in the world. So say that we wanted to get all of the movie information as to all of the movies that are out right now, or the reviews for those movies. It would make no sense for us to go and collect all of that information just for us, because there's people who have done it before. So we can use something called an API for that. And so this analogy is pretty good for it. So if you take a restaurant, for instance, when you want to order something, you need to send an order from the menu, and the restaurant will only know how to they'll only know what food to give you based on what order you give the restaurant. So say you look at the menu, say, right, well, I want to take some movie reviews from yesterday in London, and you'll send that to the restaurant will digest all that information, find all the relevant information, and then send it back to you in the format of food, or in this case data. If you have any questions about how to think of an API, or the idea of an API is confusing you, go ahead into Discord and I can have a chat and I can help clarify it with you. HTTP requests are HTTP is a protocol that we use every day when we're in our browser in Chrome or Safari or Internet Explorer or whatever. It's how we serve web pages back and forth. Except when we're using an API request, we don't need all of the fancy styling and stuff that we would normally see when we're loading up a website. Instead, we just need like really digestible information for the computer. So we use special formats which are pure data that a computer can digest really easily. A really common one is a .json file, which is it stands for JavaScript object notation, and it's just a very easy way for both humans and for computers to easily read large bits of information. And so we'll be using that in the example that I show in just a sec. So in order to demonstrate how to use an API, I've gone ahead and found the cat API, and you'll quickly find that if you have an idea or you want an API for something, it probably exists. There's so many APIs out there, and in a minute I'll show you how to find some APIs. So I'm just going to switch over to this scene over here. Bear with me here. Okay, cool. So the cat API, the one thing you'll quickly notice about every API that you use is that they have a documentation page on their website, which is exactly how to use their API, what information you need to send them, and in what format, and how you can expect that that information sent back to you, so you can program your application accordingly. So on this cat API, our goal is just going to be making a little website which will load up a new cat image every single time that you load the page. So here's a quick start guide that they've provided for us. We've got one route here, and it's going to return to us an array of JSON, an array of objects, which will contain the different cat images. I'm guessing it will just return one. We'll load its .url and enjoy the little kitty. All right, cool. So that seems simple enough. Let's go ahead and try and make something with that. I'm going to use a little tool called JSBin, which is just like a real-time development tool for JavaScript, CSS, and HTML to make websites. It's quite useful just for rapidly prototyping something. So I'm gonna, for those who haven't got a clue as to how you use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, that's okay. This will be a little exposure to that. And for those who do know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, even just a little, you should be able to follow along. So I'm gonna create an image tag. We have no source in it yet because we don't know where our image is coming from yet, where to source our image. But we are going to give it an ID of cat image. Let me zoom in a little bit here. That should be a bit easier for you guys to see. Alright, cool. We're going to quickly style this cat image, just give it a width of 100% so that we can see it nice and wide. I think that's all we need in terms of the CSS and HTML department. Now we're going to jump into JavaScript, which is where the real action kind of happens. So there's a global built-in method into JavaScript called fetch, which helps us get data from a certain route. It's perfect for APIs. It was basically built for APIs, so we're lucky to have this. So sorry, 1 second. Okay, we're going to go back to the documentation of the cat API, and we're going to copy the route that it says that we need to copy in. And then let's go back to JavaScript. This is JavaScript. Sorry, 1 second. All right, there we go. So we're back into JavaScript. We're going to go into our fetch method that we're going to call, and it only takes one parameter, which is the URL that we want to use. So I'm going to paste it in from the documentation. Then on a new line, we're going to do .then. We're going to take the response, and we're going to digest that response using another built-in method called .json. Well, it's built into the response that we're receiving. So we're just kind of digesting this information into a way that the computer can interpret it, and we can handle it nice and easily. We're going to do .then again, .then JSON. So this is the name of the parameter that we're going to deal with. And it's basically just going to pass it into a function that we can actually handle this data. So first, the thing we want to do is digest that information. So I'm actually going to just take this, because it's what we call a GET request. We can actually just copy and paste it into our browser and see what the response looks like. And I've even got this little tool which will format it for us. And you can see that it returns an array of objects with a URL, and this URL is the URL with the cat in it. So I think if we click it, we'll even get the cat. Right, so this is the cat that we need to load in. So if we remember that, we can create a new variable called cat image, and we just need to take the JSON object, take the first index of the array, because there's multiple different cat images that could be returned if we added some more parameters. So we take the first index, and then if we just go back, you can see that it's .url. We need to get the .url property from the object. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to make a second variable called image reference, and we need to reference the image tag inside of our website so we can change the source to be the new URL. Okay, cool. So image reference is document.get element by ID. And we need to get our element, which was cat image. And then we're going to do image reference dot set attribute. And then basically we need to set the attribute of source, which is where the image tag is pulling its image from, to the new cat image URL. And as you can see, instantly it works. So this is a GIF, that's pretty awesome. So every single time that we click run with JS, it should then load a new cat image. Because every single time that's reloading the page, it's doing this fetch, it's searching for an image, it's getting the URL, and it's putting it into the DOM using get element by ID and set attribute. So there you go, that's your little API example. Cool. So last thing I want to say is where to find APIs. If you have an idea of something that you want to build, best place to start is Google. But if you don't have any idea of what you want to build and you just want to browse some APIs, there are websites like this, Any API, which you can just scroll through hundreds and hundreds of different APIs, and it will tell you exactly what they do. Excuse me. So yeah, you can see there's endless different APIs. There's map APIs, there's budgets, there's so many different types of things that you can get data for, and it helps make your application 100 times more dynamic and will impress the judges tenfold, trust me. Cool, last thing I have to say is good luck. If you have any questions, I'll be hanging around in Discord. But yeah, I hope this was a useful little session. It's very much just the foundational groundwork as to how to use APIs. There's an awful lot of other other steps and other more complicated bits that you can dive into once you get a good idea of the fundamentals. But this should give you enough information to get going. I'm sure that you guys have tech mentors which will also have a good idea of how to use APIs, so they can help you out if you have any questions. But yeah, good luck.